what if we did like a Breaking Bad for Jesus? I'm like, okay, now we're talking here, you know? It was all about creating this TV show around the life of Jesus, but through the perspective of those that he called and seeing their transformation. For us to do this, we didn't have some big Hollywood, company paying us a lot of money.
Yeah.
$55 million is what season 5 is costing us to create. Where does that $55 million come from? We actually had to do it through the audience. Views are easy. Community is hard. You have to be consistently speaking to that person at a deeper level than just, oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
I laughed or whatever.
Right.
But if you get someone where it was like, oh my gosh, I got to share this, and they consistently hit that where you're sharing it over and over and over again, then you're building a brand. You're building something bigger than just a piece of content.
Oh, I am just getting started.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Travis Makes Friends. This one is a little bit different. We're live at VidSummit here in Dallas, Texas. This is my second year doing this, third year back to the conference, actually. So this has been a really enjoyable format, and love doing stuff with the VidSummit folks. They're always really great. So today on the show, I'm making friends with Derral Eves. Derral, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. Hey, so I've known about your stuff for a really long time now. I want to say, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I came across working with the guys over at Space Station in Utah, and loved everything that they built out there. They ended up investing in my company.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So their investment syndicate put some money in my software company, Gustio. And through that, I just started getting inundated with, Sean Duras content, which they obviously do a fantastic job of doing that. Him and, Adley's channel and all the others, creators that they work with. And then so as a part of that, they were like, hey, why don't you come out to VidSummit? And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? I'll go check it out. And I was like, I was unsure what to expect. And I didn't, frankly, do a ton of research before I went. I just showed up, and show up, and then one of the first little cocktail mixers, whatever, is like Mr. Beast is walking around, and I was like, oh, this is like a legit YouTube conference. Like that's like the guy. That's like the number one guy.
That's right.
There. So then get a copy of your book, because we started finally on YouTube last year. We're playing catch up.
It's about time. Come on.
So much catch up, man. It was such a terrible decision. I had this mental block, and maybe you can help anybody listening get over this block as well. I had this mental block about like putting Zoom interviews on YouTube.
Right.
So the podcast has been around for almost 7 years now.
Right.
But we just got on YouTube at the beginning of last year, when we committed to doing all of our interviews in person. So I'm way behind the curve. You're the YouTube expert. You are kind of the brains behind a lot of these massive brands that started out, including Mr. Beast himself. You guys have worked closely with each other for a really long time. And now the executive producer of The Chosen, which is, and correct me if I'm wrong, the highest crowdfunded television show ever produced. Is that right?
Film and television.
Film and television. The highest, the most money raised through crowdfunding, and one of the most viewed shows on all of Apple TV. So, man, if anybody knows how to do video well, especially as it relates to building a brand, building a business, creating community, which I know is something that you're really big on. It's definitely you. So I'm excited to bring you on the show. And for those of you in the live audience here that are watching, I ask that you just indulge me, okay? Because I really enjoy interviewing people and really trying to figure out where they came from, so that we can build context around why we should listen to them. So let's go back in time, Derral. 8-year-old, 9-year-old,
oh my God,
Derral Eves. Set the scene.
Hey, I was a weird kid. I'll tell you. I did. So 8 years old, I really had a fascination with content early on. I really loved commercials. And at that time, there's 2 amazing commercials that was hitting, great campaigns. One's Where's the Beef?
Okay.
And it was a Wendy's campaign where these 3 grandmas were trying to figure out where the beef patty was because they were so small or whatever. It just had me hysterically laughing every time.
Yeah.
And so this is about the age that VCRs and you could go to rent movies. It was starting to pop up, but no one owned a VCR just kind of in their home.
Gotcha.
Only the rich of the rich, right? And so I saved my money.
Accessible technology, those
No,
VCRs.
it's crazy stuff. But I saved my money for my paper route, and I spent like $1,000 on a VCR just so that I could record those commercials. Wow. And so we had that commercial right there. And then also Bob the Dunkin' Donuts, Bob the baker, was it Fred the baker? Fred the baker, amazing content. And then what I would take is the VCR over to my friends, and I'd share those videos with them, and we'd laugh together. And so that's kind of how it started.
YouTube, yeah. Basically YouTube.
Yeah, it was basically YouTube
showing
with the VCR
videos on $1,000 VCR.
Yeah. And what happened next was, this is 1984. And it was about February. It was January, February-ish. I saw a commercial on the Super Bowl. It was Ridley Scott's Macintosh commercial, 1984, and it just blew my mind. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I really, really want to do content.
There's something here, yeah.
Yeah, I saw a lot of film, television, but I'm like, I want to make Super Bowl commercials. That's all I wanted to do. And from that moment, I did something weird for an 8-year-old. And I took a notebook, and I was like really trying to figure out what commercials responded to different people. And
at 8?
At 8. And I was trying to figure out why they like certain things. And I noticed there was like patterns that the people that really like, cowboys and rodeos, and they have kind of that background, they like the Budweiser commercials for some reason. And so I started to see these patterns at a young age.
Yeah.
And that fascination really grew. And what happened next was, I would say the other era for me was Saturday Night Live. Like when I discovered Saturday Night Live, just that sketch comedy was really, really it just was impactful. It was funny.
Who was like the class?
Class, it was Adam Sandler, Chris Farley, Phil Hartman, David Spade. I mean, that was the best. Yeah. So Victoria Jackson.
Yeah.
But it was Phil Jackson's commercials that just had me going every single time. Sorry, Phil Hartman.
Yeah.
So it was like, the Love Toilet, colon cleanser. There's like a lot of those. There's a lot of poop references for sure. But
on SNL? That's great.
Yeah. No, it was so good. So anyway, I still would record I just didn't want to miss any sketch comedy, and I'd still record it. In fact, my mom, to this day, is so mad at me because I'd record over family memories and have episodes of Saturday Night Live. Yeah, it's so great.
So always had this curiosity itch that needed to be scratched around video content from a super young age.
Yeah, I would say I knew what good content was. It made me feel different, and I had this innate desire to share really good content, and I knew a lot of people did the same way. And it's like I just started to be more hyper aware of how humans actually consume content, and then have that inner need to want to share it. And so that kind of led on, and I actually was obsessed. I wanted just to make Super Bowl commercials. That's all I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so in my spare time, I just read every marketing and advertising book, and was able to graduate from high school. And I put my life on hold for a couple of years. I was a missionary for my church. Went to South America, Paraguay, and really fell in love with the people down there, and kind of opened up my eyes that, hey, the world doesn't revolve around me.
Sure.
There's something bigger than that. And served there for 2 years. And I came home, and then it was like locked in. I'm okay. I'm going to get a job. And I knew the 2 agencies I wanted to work for. There's one in Chicago, one in LA, that they produced about 60% of the Super Bowl commercials that's out there for some of the biggest brands. And so I found a university. It was actually close to me. It was Southern Utah University. That there was 2 retired professionals that were teaching just because they wanted to buy time, but they worked for both of those agencies. And so I'm like, okay, this is my shoe-in. I'm going to get to know them. And so I went and worked really hard. I'm one that I don't like to do things normal. I like to just go at a faster pace. So I got a 4-year degree in 2.5 years.
Nice.
Something I'm just trying to get it done as fast as I can. And it was my last year, my senior year, that I got some pretty amazing news. Both of the companies I wanted to work for offered me kind of a foot in the door internship. Nice. And so it's like, hey, you can work in the mailroom, and that's kind of what you did back then, and work your way up. And I'm like, this is super exciting. And then my wife says, hey, got great news, honey. And so went home and I found out that I was gonna be a father. And so I had these 3 decisions, like what to do. And I would say this will help you understand me better, but I was looking at what life's gonna be like, and moving to Chicago or moving to LA, and raising a family. And it's not those places are bad, but most of my siblings, I'm one of 10 kids, like they all live around each other. And I'm like, man, I wanted my kids to have the same type of relationships that I have with my family. And so I'm like, if I move, they're never going to have that.
Yeah.
And so, after much thought and prayer, I decided my family's more important than making Super Bowl commercials. And so I decided, you know what, I'm just gonna, figure things out. I'm gonna stay local, and ended up getting an opportunity to work for a regional hospital as PR director, assistant director.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit. I find for folks that find something that they're that interested in or passionate about, especially that young, it becomes really difficult to focus on anything else, especially things that you view as being like,
that's so true,
not a good use of time, right? Like school.
So,
Did you ever have any of those like issues? Like, were you just so focused on video, like that you were?
I wouldn't say video. It was more advertising marketing. It was just like that portion of it. But yes, I would say that I have a really huge fascination with technologies, like programming and all that other stuff. So it's just, that's kind of my passion for sure.
And what did your parents do?
So my father, was a general contractor, built like 200-300 houses a year, that type of thing. And then my mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Okay.
I mean, you have to kind of balance out the family when you have 10 kids.
10 kids is no small task.
So,
2 kids is no small task.
Yeah. So I knew I didn't want to do construction because I saw what my dad went through.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, it was fascinating, fun. One thing about my parents, and this is what I love about them, is they would always have me lean in on what I'm interested in. And so early on in my life, I've always had access to computers, and they were just really pushing me to figure out what I want to do. And they weren't like, oh, you got to do the family business or anything like that.
Sure.
It's just like, go find your own path.
How was your time in Paraguay?
Amazing. So went and we don't get to choose where we go. There's like, we just kind of put in your
assigned or whatever.
Yeah, you get to put in, hey, you want to serve, and then you get assigned somewhere. And when I found out I was going to Paraguay, I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So I just did a lot of research and realized that they just don't speak Spanish there. There's actually another language called Guarani that is also the national language. And so I'm like, okay, this will be fascinating. But for me, that's where I found where true happiness is. And it was like really, I think when you're serving people and you're really serving God, and that's where I was able to have a deeper relationship with God and Jesus, was through that experience. And then seeing his grace through people. And it changed me, because like before then it was like everything was about me. And what I was going to do, and then it was like more about doing what God wants me to do. And so that kind of changed my whole perspective. At 19 years old.
Obviously, I'm sure you knew a lot of other people who did those missions. Was that a common experience? Do you feel like I feel like I've talked to a good amount of people where it feels like split down. Like some people go and they're like, that was an amazing, life-changing, awesome experience. Like recommend it highly. Other people like quit 6 months in and come back and they're like, that was miserable, and then they quit.
It's hard because, I mean, think about what a 19-year-old's going through in their life. I mean, they're just graduating high school, going into college, they want to start things, and you're literally putting your life on hold. And a lot of people just don't have the ability to just give up and say, okay, I'm going to just do what God wants me to do, and learn things and be patient. Because it's like, it's hard. I mean, I my first area, I was learning Spanish, which I thought, okay, I have this down, and I went there and like I couldn't understand anyone.
Right.
And my first area, they didn't speak a lick of Spanish. It was all Guarani, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it was so hard, and I wanted to communicate, and so it just a lot of people, give up because, you're put in cultures and situations, and then two, there's a lot of rejection. So like you go door to door, people are slamming the door in their face, but not in Paraguay because most of them didn't have doors. So we're just like, we were good with that. But it was just like otro dia, another day, another day, come back another day.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of rejection. And so it can consume someone where all they're looking at is the negativity. But for me, and this came from some advice of my father, is just like really focus in on the positive things. And see God's hand. And once I was able to see God's hand, it was just like so vast that it opened up a world that I didn't even know existed.
It teaches a lot of self-reliance too.
Yeah.
To just be out in a different country where you aren't familiar with the culture, the language that much, and like it's basically you and another person.
Yeah, and you're not even
That's
you're literally assigned someone. You don't get to choose
like a
who you
random.
like.
Yeah.
And
Right.
you might love them and you might not like them that much, but you'll learn grace.
You will
That's
be
what
with them for some time. Yeah, either way.
It's so true.
Okay, so coming out of the mission, this is when you are
Just
looking-
all
looking
locked
for the
in.
jobs.
Yeah, just locked in on
Back
working.
focused on like the mission that was before.
Yeah, I wanted to make Super Bowl commercials for sure.
Yeah.
So that's where for me, I'm a very driven person, and I just at a young age, I know what I want, and I'm going to do whatever I can to get it without compromising my morality.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, what we want in life we can achieve, and I just don't like people telling me what I can and can't do. And so like, hey, you got to take 4 years. I'm like, bullcrap. I can figure out a way
Right.
to do it in 2.5. Like you guys, you're archaic. There's a new way of doing things, And so that's kind of my mentality.
Yeah. So basically, you decide that building your family life in this is in Utah.
Yeah, it's in Utah. Yeah.
So building your family life in Utah, establishing there was more important than doing Super Bowl commercials.
It was. I wanted my future family, my daughter that was coming, and then my now four boys, so 5 kids. I wanted them to have a relationship with their grandparents. I wanted them to go be able to knock on grandma's door and have a hot cookie.
Yeah.
Like that was more important than anything, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that sacrifice.
I'm sure grandma's grateful for that too.
Oh, grandma was grateful for that because she lived 4 doors up, and so it was great. So it was just like they always had that interaction, and that to me was the most important thing because that's what brings me the most joy and happiness in this life.
Yeah,
is family.
It's funny. We've been kind of or not really coincidentally, just more surprisingly jumping around talking about values more than even video.
Yeah,
and it seems like a lot of your decisions have been very values driven. How often do you think about your core values, your family values? How important is that to think through?
I think I was so ingrained in trying to follow the teachings of Jesus when I was a young age, and I didn't really follow.
Yeah.
And when I was 17, I was able to discover who Jesus really is and give him my all. And I think that was the moment where I submitted for the first time. Because I'm not a guy that submits. I just do.
Yeah.
And I just gave him my heart. And then I promised him I'd build his kingdom, And so for me, the kingdom, it wasn't a hard decision not to go work at those agencies for the Super Bowl because his kingdom is my home, my kids. And I wanted that experience, that they can experience this Jesus that I come to know and love. And so that kind of set me on a path where I'm firm in what I believe. I don't deviate in what I believe. I'm not apologetic of what I believe.
Yeah.
But I'm not forceful of what I believe either. It's just me. And I think there's a unique way that God is using me to amplify his word, and it's using video for sure.
So you take a job at a hospital doing PR?
I don't know what. It was just because it was like...
It was just a job.
Not construction. And I'm like, what is the highest amount of money I could make in Southern Utah? And it was like hospital administrator was like 7 figures. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do that.
Yeah, that seems like a decent path.
Yeah. I'm like, I can do that. I can do that in my sleep.
How long did you do that for?
6 months.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So,
I assume it didn't last very long.
Yeah, so no, it was interesting. So I came in and I did an internship, and they offered me a job because they gave me a summer internship, and I got all the stuff that they needed done in like a week.
Okay.
And they're like, "Oh my gosh, come work for us." And so I came on, worked for them. I'm kind of weird. I can do graphic design, and I can program, and I can do all this other stuff. So I did 17 publications for the regional hospital and their corporate website. So I did all that. They didn't have to outsource it, and I saved them like $865,000.
Yeah.
And I got a new family. I just barely had a baby, and
Right.
and I went to my boss's boss, who's the CFO, and it was the chief operating officer, and the CFO was in the same thing. So I go in there and like, hey, we were just talking about you, and right then and there, the CEO of the company, who I want his job, right?
Yeah.
He comes in, and they're like, hey, we were just talking about you, how amazing you've been doing here. I'm like, oh, that's great, because I was going to ask for a raise, right? And
What a coincidence.
yeah, and I was like, yeah, we're just going through how it's amazing. I says, hey, I just got accepted in the master's program in UNLV, in hospital administration. And like, great, man, we can see you running this hospital. I'm like, okay, this is the encouragement that I need.
Yeah.
And then I asked for a $10,000 a year raise, and they're like, oh, no. I mean, you're going to be making more than your appropriate supervisor, and we can't have that.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
And that's
okay.
when you realize corporations.
I literally did it, but it was the words that was said next. That didn't really deter me much.
Okay.
But the CEO says, I can see you running this hospital in 15 years. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to wait that long.
That's
like
so
that-
funny you say that, man. Like that, those were always the things that scared me.
Yeah.
Especially when you're young, you're ambitious,
Yeah.
you're driven, you're hardworking, and you know what you're capable of doing, given the chance.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a second, 15 years?
Yeah, 15. I'm like, I thought I was going to do it in 5,
Right.
But anyway, so I pull out my old Motorola phone. It's like that flip phone. It's a
yeah.
big old brick thing. And I called my wife and I says, hey, I got to quit my job. And she's like, what happened? What's going on?
Yeah.
And I go, I just cannot work here anymore.
Yeah.
Like I just lost all motivation and drive within 2 minutes. And
Right.
she goes, oh, tell me what happened, whatever. And I'm like, I don't even want to deal with it. I'm just so upset. And anyway, so I put my notice in, and they tried to do it, and they even offered me the $10,000. But it was a principled thing of what they said at the time, and they didn't. Even though they said they didn't value until I was gone. And so it was a more
course.
principled thing for me. And
Yeah.
I went home, and my wife says, hey, totally support you. I mean, here we have a brand new newborn. We have a mortgage, we have all this stuff.
right.
I'm like,
Right.
but I couldn't do it. And she goes, whatever you do, I will support you as long as you don't start your own business. I'm like, okay.
Famous
So
last words.
I went and found jobs. I had a couple job offers, some really lucrative, nice job offers. And once again, I'd have to move. And I'm like, I can't move.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to do it. And so I went to my wife. I says, I got to start my own company. I can't have people telling me what to do.
Yeah.
I got to just start my own company. And I don't want to sacrifice my life for others. I want to rather sacrifice my life for my family. And so that's where she goes, let's just pray about it. And she prayed, and she's never complained once, not once since 1999.
1999. So what was that
Yeah.
first? What was that first company?
No, the first company's still the same company. It started in the agency, and
Okay.
I'm like, hey, I'm really good online. So I started doing a lot of website design
Okay.
and marketing, digital marketing.
Okay.
And this is before it was a thing,
Yeah.
99. And so we were actually ranking people in Ask Jeeves and Yahoo
Ask
directories.
Yeah.
But that ages me. And then it was like get a website design, and then I would get it marketed, and then we had a hosting company that was just a way to bring in some recurring revenue. So
Yeah. So YouTube comes out
so
around what timeline?
2005. So I was expanding my company. We had a lot of websites that we've done. We had a lot of international work. It was really weird because nobody in my area would like to pay me, but I found that the world was my audience.
Sure. Yeah.
And I never
advantage of having
I never
online
marketed
business.
myself. I always just did a good job where I went in and asked for a couple referrals, and they'd always connect me with people that were looking to do that. It was just the easiest way. And so kind of branched out very specifically throughout the world. And I found that, I could actually charge a lot more money. I'm a discount in New York. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
right. Exactly.
You know, and we can do everything virtual. And so 2005, we were expanding our company, and I had to buy furniture and, just like desks and chairs and stuff like that. And I just didn't have an operations person, so I was running the company, but also, chief marketer or whatever. And went on to Craigslist because I'm cheap. Like I want a free desk, $5, whatever. And I saw this ad, and the ad said, "Win a brand new iPod." Now, at the time, Apple had the iPod that was like the size of a brick that could hold 1,000 songs, and if you threw it at somebody, it would probably kill them.
Yeah, but
because
they were
it weighed a lot, right? But Steve Jobs just introduced the iPod Nano, and it was just that really thin one. I'm like, okay, I'm all in. And I went to this website that they're giving away that if you could sign up, you could enter in to win. And it was YouTube. And that was the first place that I can say
Interesting.
that.
So YouTube was running ads on Craigslist for free iPods to go use their platform.
That is correct. Did you know? Well, no. I'll take it deeper.
Okay.
Did you know that YouTube started as a dating website?
No, I did not.
It was Valentine's Day, 2005, and they were paying women $20 to upload videos to do this whole thing. So they knew if they had the guys that come in, whatever. And then in May, everybody was uploading snowboarding adventures, videos of their cat, and they did a pivot. Right. And so October, they were just kind of scaling it out. That's when I discovered them, and it caused me to like slow down. There's only a couple times in my life where it felt like just the earth stopped.
Sure.
And it was just like I had clarity. And it was the moment that I saw there was a button there that said Webmaster Tools on it. And you can click on it and you can embed those videos on any website.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I made 865 websites, and I can put a video on every single one of those. And in fact, I love video.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go do that. And it was just like the whole aha moment. And for me, I went back and spent the next year and a half doing 865 videos. First off, convincing people to do video before video was a thing online. And then producing 865 videos. And then magically, Google was purchased, or YouTube was purchased by Google for $1.64 billion.
Yeah.
And then all those videos that we made started to show up in Google search.
What was the timeline between those two events? Like discover
October,
YouTube sells to Google.
Yeah, so this October 2005, November 2005, I was uploading my first video for a first client on it. And then all of 2006 and into 2007.
Wow. So
and in 2007 is where I had one of those other surreal moments, which was all the work that I do to get websites to rank in Google. I just make a video and it outranks it. And I'm like, I'm going to just be the video guy on Google. I can get anything shifted. So I sold my company that did all the website design or whatever. Okay. And I went straight into video and then paid per leads. So I'd rank people's videos, and then they'd pay me to rank them, and then also paid me per lead to come in. And then I started working with doctors, dentists, lawyers. And then I was really good at messaging because, I spent my whole life, being obsessed with marketing, and it was all about people and getting people to take action. And it led to really coming with verticals. So I did, personal injury attorneys because they'd pay anything pretty much, and then it was like dentists, lawyers, and then we did retirement homes because we have a lot of retirement homes in Southern Utah.
Okay.
And I was opening up a new vertical, and one of my friends has a pest control company, and we live in the desert, so we get cockroaches the size of dogs.
Yep.
And so they're like, you know all about that. So Vegas has that too, right? But like for me, I like to own a vertical and then just kind of scale it out and go into other places. So I'm like, hey, let me do some of your ranking, and we'll get the phone ring for you. And anyway, he had a growing pest control company, and we made 5 videos, ranked them all over, and we quintupled his calls that were coming in. And so he usually just sat in the office and the technicians out. And so he actually says, well, I got to go keep up with all this.
Yeah.
And so I'll just take the higher.
I got to go work now.
Yeah, higher end clients. And he went in and was spraying in this store, and the manager of the store came up and says, hey, noticed your video on YouTube. Who does the marketing behind it and stuff like that? He says, oh, it's this guy Derral, And he goes, oh, really cool. I've been trying to sell these pianos online. Maybe we could talk. And so I went in there and was talking with the owner of the piano store, and he goes, I've been dabbling on YouTube. I hurt my back, and so I was like watching YouTube, and I think it's gonna be a big thing. And I think I can sell pianos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so he showed me a video, and I kid you not, I'm like, oh my goodness. He like literally put this piano on top of a mountain and was playing this most amazing music. It had this amazing, a musician that came in and was playing the piano. And I'm like, dude, that was like an amazing video. Like, how many pianos did you sell? No call to action or nothing, but it was like showcasing the Yamaha brand.
Sure.
And he goes, nah, it's like nothing yet, but we're getting out there. We're just getting some momentum. And I'm like, dude, like that was really good. I go, there's some ways that you can do some calls to action to whatever. He's like, well, no, we're getting some money from Yamaha to kind of feature it and this whole thing.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And I'm like, you got 20,000 views on this. Like, what do you really want to do? And he's like, man, if I could just make music videos, that's all I want to do. I hate selling pianos.
Yeah.
And so right then and there, they went from about 20,000 subscribers up to 1.8 million subscribers.
Oh my God.
And a couple 100 million video views. And it was all taking really great content. And they're great content creators.
Yeah.
But packaging it in a way where you're building a community around something. And so if you go onto YouTube, look up the Piano Guys.
Oh yeah.
That was it. Like I was there, and what was beautiful from it, that's where everything came together. It was, wait a minute, why do I want to make Super Bowl commercials? Why was I obsessed with it?
Yeah.
It was because people talk at the water cooler and at school and at home and talk about that content.
Yeah.
And here I'm at a place and a platform that you can create content and you can broadcast it yourself and people will talk about it. And I was able to see how audience was developed. In fact, the first concert that they actually did, I watched something I just don't normally see with a brand, which is a multi-generational audience. I saw great grandmas with their great grandkids going to a concert and enjoying it. And I'm like, this is gold. And I knew how to market it. I knew how to build it, And so right then and there, I vowed I would just be that audience development person on YouTube. I was going to be, when people thought of YouTube, I wanted them to think of me for marketing and strategy. And I went out and from that point, generated over 110 billion video views on YouTube and worked with the biggest brands and YouTubers on the planet. So
at that time, how many people were like pointing the crazy finger at you?
A lot. Yeah. I mean, they're like, oh, you make money on YouTube?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of that.
It's
it
just
was like
a fad. Yeah, it'll
a
go
fad.
away.
They didn't see the potential, but for me, it was like you put in anything and there's no one stopping you to get that distributed, because if you get the right piece of content, it can be shared over and over again. People, they have that innate desire to share what they're into, and there's an algorithm that will trigger from that. And so that was a pretty big moment for me. I actually burned my ships. I have a tendency to do that every once in a while, where I'm like, I'm all in.
All in, yeah.
I'm selling everything. I'm just focusing on that. That was 2008, 2009.
Okay.
And I haven't looked back. I was just like 100% audience development. That's all I wanted to do. Build YouTube channels, grow audiences, and leverage the audiences into converting.
What do you think was really behind? Why didn't Google Video work? Because you would just go to video.google.com at the time, right?
Well, that didn't work. Google Video didn't work. That's why they bought.
That's kind of my question. Is like that. When I see those types of market disrupting pieces of technology, where it's not wild technology. Yeah. They're not building something awesome and new. It's like it's just video on a website. You know what I mean? But there were, stupidvideos.com was out at the time, Google Video, and Google was already a massive company at this point, and they were just like, oh, we're going to build a video platform, and then it just tanked Like, why did YouTube
I can tell you
when Google couldn't figure it out?
Yeah, so one of the founders, his name's Chad, he got drunk and was on stage at a conference, and he had a really, really bad hangover, and he's like, hey, we're going to share revenue with creators. He's like, and everyone's like, what? You know, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And he knew that YouTube would never be able to create content on their own, and they needed to motivate creators, and they're like, he sought an industry, and you know, beknownst to anyone, I mean, he pretty much said that on stage, and then they had to figure it out. And so, what happened next was they already had AdSense that was happening, where they'd share with, you'd share with websites and stuff like that. So they already had the model.
Yeah.
They just needed to do it into YouTube, and that right there is how YouTube created the market that it's in, because now, when you got views, that equated to money.
Yeah.
And when you have money, you can create more content and grow an audience and really leverage it in unique ways. And so they did a great job at creating the industry, for digital online influencers.
How long did it take, do you think, for like real creators to start coming out of the YouTube? So like, I guess what I mean by that is like, there was a time where when YouTube first came out, everybody knew what videos were viral. Like it was just like Charlie Bit My Finger goes viral. Everybody knows that video.
That's right.
Now we can exist in completely different ecosystems of virality where I could see something on my feed on any one of the social media apps that has video that has 48 million views in 3 days. And you'll never see that video. And at that time, it was just like, this is the only place where you can get this. But it was usually these kind of one-off videos. It was more like a collection, almost like America's Funniest Home Videos online.
Yeah.
When did it start becoming more like creators are creating these how-to
the moment that they started sharing revenue with creators. So let me tell you what happened, just so you have context of it. So the moment that YouTube says, hey, we're going to do this, they always do an experiment where they pull people together. Well, in that experiment, they had Shay Carl, who is one of the early vloggers on YouTube. And they had 10 different creators, and 4 of the 10 were from Utah. And we did this meetup in the basement of Devin Supertramp. I don't know if you know who Devin is or not. Amazing guy, amazing.
I've not met him, but I know him.
Yeah. So here we are, 30 people in the bottom basement of Devin's thing. He's like, hey, this YouTube's going to be a thing. And here we had like myself. And
welcome to the cult meeting.
The piano guys. We had Lindsey Sterling there. We had Shay Carl. We had Ricky Ray Butler. We had, it was just, there's a lot of people there that were early adopters of YouTube. And then it was just like, hey, let's just help each other figure these things out. It wasn't being territorial around it. There's just this huge opportunity.
Sure.
And so I would say Devin Graham led the charge on, you can do top shelf content and get a ton of views. And then there's another creator called Freddie Wong, like amazing VFX. And he just was doing a lot of stuff there in California. And it was just like, hey, you could record something, but this is actually bigger entertainment and anyone can do it. Like no one's stopping you from doing it. And I think that was the indicator of where you could make money doing it and then also have an audience that can support you.
Yeah. Just to put a button on the YouTube conversation, what do you think was happening at like HQ when TikTok took over as the highest watch time in a single month of any social media platform, including YouTube?
I mean, there's always competition.
That one blew my mind though.
For eyeballs.
Right, like 30-second hits and YouTube's got these.
It didn't blow my mind because I did some consulting for the company that bought Musical.ly and transformed it to TikTok. And when I saw it, I'm like, ooh, this is like very addictive, dopamine hit. And the algorithm is probably the best I've ever seen of just giving you content that you just have to watch.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they kind of changed the game in terms of like algorithmic priority, meaning that you don't have to have a large subscriber base or follower base on the platform in order for a video to get caught in the loop and
that's the way it's on YouTube as well and TikTok. So like you don't need to have a big following; you just have to have content that resonates with a specific type of audience. Then they go find that audience to watch it.
Yeah.
So, but I would say YouTube, I wouldn't say was really freaked out I think they're very well established, and just because you have eyeballs doesn't make you profitable. And they already went down that route.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're very profitable right now, and they have advertisers that have the audience, and they have creators that want to create content for it. And right now, there's a few people that make some decent money on TikTok. One of which is doing TikTok Shop and selling things online.
Yeah.
So it's more
Like a
transactional,
kind of a QVC
right?
channel. Yeah.
But creators, like one video on YouTube will make what they make in a month on TikTok.
Sure.
And it's like there's this whole other world, and all these YouTubers want to go on TikTok just for more eyeballs that come back to YouTube to make more money. But people on TikTok want to go to YouTube because they're not making any money.
Right.
And let me give you the perfect example of this, because they have a conference where fans meet with their creators, and TikTok was the major sponsor of this conference called VidCon, and they brought all the TikTokers there, and there were people that had meet and greets that never saw a person because it wasn't connected to a community, it wasn't connected to it, it was just a piece of content, and it wasn't to know that personality.
Gotcha.
And I'm not saying that there's some that can actually have a following,
Sure, yeah.
but it wasn't like to the level of fandom that they get, you know, with YouTube.
Okay, so let's talk The Chosen.
Yeah.
Actually, no. Let's go back a little bit further than that. Mr. Beast, Jimmy, talk to me about like your guys' relationship. When did you start kind of?
Well, it's actually it kind of intertwines with Chosen quite a bit.
Great.
So for me, I've seen a trend that was happening on YouTube I wasn't really happy with. At that time, Vine died.
Yeah.
And that was similar to what TikTok is, but a little bit shorter, 6 minutes, 6 seconds.
6 second, yeah.
But I saw...
I hear Elon, by the way, is
did you?
rumbling that he might bring Vine back.
I would love it on X for sure.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting.
But anyway, saw this invasion of people was making content, and then they were growing really fast. Well, that kind of led to everyone saying, "Oh, this is the gold standard of what content could look like," and it wasn't from my point of view, it wasn't very wholesome content, and I wasn't having it. I just wasn't happy with it. And
These
I
are
knew
people that did well on Vine, you're saying, or
I'm just saying the creators that came from Vine outside of just a few handful like Zach King, it was just trash content from my perspective, and I didn't see it was going to be being a net positive for the world. I think it was going to be a net negative.
Trash as in the content itself was, or like they were just doing...
Is deplorable acts,
Gotcha.
Pranks, things that...
Gotcha,
it's just, it's a prank, bro.
The shock factor.
Yeah. It was just like getting the view on that.
My favorite thing is watching somebody who says it's a prank, bro, just like get punched in the face.
Yeah. So you like the reaction to the reaction.
Exactly.
There we go.
Right, yeah. Real meta here, but
Exactly.
those are my favorite.
But that was actually happening, and for me, I knew what was going to happen culturally. I knew that these new budding YouTubers would say, this is the gold standard. And I'm like, I got to keep my eyes out for someone that could be the gold standard that was completely opposite of that. And anyway, and this is, I'll kind of weave The Chosen in because it's really synonymous with this. So I'm very good at seeing who's going to be the next big thing on YouTube. I can kind of spot tell in a million wild way. I know what good content is, and I know when they understand their audience.
Okay.
And when they understand that, I'm like, okay, they're going to go big. And I have a conference called VidSummit, and every year we kind of get together and we talk about the creator economy of how to make money. I mean, you alluded to it, coming to it.
Yep.
Anyway, I got this short film that this creator made for his church, and it was on the birth of Jesus Christ, but it was different. It was like through the perspective of the shepherds.
Okay.
And so anyway, I'm watching this at my conference and just in this little room, and that's the moment that once again the world stopped, the universe stopped, and I was just honed in. I knew exactly what it was, and I'm like, man, this is good. And it had me in minutes realizing, man, whoever made this is really smart. They know how to do character development in a way that you care about someone in a short amount of time, which is really hard to do, by the way.
Sure.
And it pulled me into the story, and there was a moment that it was just, it just wrecked me. It wrecked me because of my relationship with Jesus. I'm like, okay, I'm seeing Jesus differently through the eyes of someone else. And right then and there, knock on the door, it was like right at the pivotal moment where, the birth was actually going to happen of Jesus Christ. And my team comes in, hey, we need you emergency, whatever. I'm running a conference. I got 3,000 people.
Right.
I had to go out. I'm like, okay. I just want to meet this creator. I don't care. I want to be a part of this. I don't care if I have to hold the light. I just don't care. I just want to be a part of it. So the next week I met Dallas Jenkins for the first time. And he just came off a Hollywood disaster. And he was working for some church and doing these amazing videos.
Yeah.
And he shared with me his vision that he tried to do for the last 10 years of making a TV show about Jesus. And I go, I would love to hear more, but before we do, I'm like, tell me what's the best TV show of all time? And he's like, Breaking Bad, of course. I'm like, okay, we can talk. Because it's about character development. It's really good content. Vince Gilligan's just amazing.
Yeah.
And so we kind of nerded out on that. He's like, what if we did like a Breaking Bad for Jesus? I'm like, okay, now we're talking here,
You have my attention.
Yeah, you had my attention early on. But we sat down and we really hit it off. And then for me, I'm like, this guy's magnetic. He's like an influencer. He doesn't even know it. He is passionate, and I can see him growing an audience. And so I floated the idea of, hey, this is what I do, and I kind of explained my background in developing audiences. And I says, we could develop the audience that would fund the show, and we can kind of go from there. And he's like, hey, what do I have to lose? I mean,
yeah, sure,
let's go for it. So I called my wife up, and by this time my wife's already used to my craziness. I'm like, hey, we're going to start a new business.
Yeah.
And she goes, okay, what now?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Again?
TV show. Oh, that's great. About Jesus. Okay, that's nice, dear. That was about it,
Just autopilot.
Yeah. It was autopilot. But right then and there, we had zero social following, zero money in the bank, but we had vision, we had clarity.
Yeah.
And the first thing that we did after that, after, creating a company was...
What year was this, by the way?
7 years ago.
Okay.
So... but anyways, locking ourselves in an Airbnb for 2 days to just really understand who we are, what we're not doing. I think this brand kind of essence of like growing a community, and then we wanted to work on our messaging of like who we're gonna target, what we're gonna target, and why.
Yeah.
But it was all about creating this TV show around the life of Jesus, but through the perspective of those that he called and seeing their transformation, right? And so just really beautiful content. And then we had the pilot episode, which we bought the rights from his church to own the rights to that. And then we used that as hey, here's kind of like the pilot episode of what we're trying to do. We kind of share the vision. And that's where it all started. And right then and there, we, really good at marketing and really good at audience development. And so we did a lot of behind the scenes of, hey, look what we're going to do. And, it's all missional based. And, before you know it, we had, a following on, we didn't even start on YouTube because it was harder to share content on YouTube. So we did Facebook at the time.
Okay.
And that's where our core audience was at anyway. And so we started there, and it was like sharing the vision and have people get behind us. And we did a lot of live streams and raising money until we broke the all-time crowdfunding record. And in film and television, we beat out, Mystery Science Theater 3000 and Veronica Mars.
Wow.
Take that honor. And then it led to getting to the moment where we're now going to make the show. And so we're all trying to figure out where we're going to shoot the show. Dallas has been writing the scripts with some writers. And we were just down the road here in Texas. So I was Googling and found this little Capernaum village. I'm like, that's kind of odd. And so we're going to go check it out. And so we're down the road in Weatherford. And at that time, I get this DM on Twitter. And it was a YouTuber that I knew of. He had about 3 million subscribers. And I just saw he was doing really disruptive things. And like he was just giving money to Twitch streamers and doing some really cool stuff. And he's like, hey, would love to chat. I'm like, hey, I'm, doing a scout, for, a shoot, let me get back with you. And so we finished the tour at the facility. It was just perfect. It was just like, it was almost like God made that place for us to start The Chosen out because it was all done. We didn't have to build the sets. We just got to add to it.
Yeah.
And so we're getting excited about it. And then I'm all driving here in Dallas to the airport. And I call this kid back, and it was Mr. Beast. And he goes, hey, let's just chat. And so we started chatting. And it was like 2 peas in a pod. I mean, we had the same focus, same drive.
Yeah.
We loved data the same way. And that it felt like that conversation was about 3 hours, and it felt like 30 minutes. It wasn't very long, but it was just like a whole bunch. He's like, dude, tell me where you're at right now. And I'm like, told you I was in Dallas. He goes, I'll be there in 4 hours. You're not going to be here in 4 hours. He goes, I will be here in 4 hours. And sure enough, he was here in 4 hours. And we just sat down and we spent a day. I kind of delayed my flight, spent a day.
Yeah.
And I'm very good at spotting talent. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, if I can inspire someone and mentor someone that can make a difference, then maybe it'd be the opposite of what's happening now on YouTube.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to just at least give him my day, maybe I can connect with him.
You said he had how many subs at the time?
About 3 million
Okay.
at the time, almost 4. So he was like 18 years old. I mean, just really coming into it. And so I'm like, hey, here he is. And my first question was, we get into this. It was just down the road here. And I'm like, so just I got to know what you drive. Like I know where I just need to understand, kind of about your life. And this is, I kid you not, this is what he said. He goes, I know where you're going with this. And let me just phrase it this way. If I bought a Lambo, I'd have to buy my boys a Lambo. And if I bought my boys a Lambo, I mean, then they expect a lot more. And if I had a Lambo, I'd rather just give it away. And the reason why I said it'd be great content.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and I go, tell me, if you could do one thing and achieve one thing, what do you want to achieve? And he goes, well, I'm obsessed with one thing. That's it.
Yeah.
And I go, what's that? He goes, I want to be the biggest YouTuber of all time. And I go, okay, let's hone in on this. And then I knew he had the drive, he had the talent. He just needed to be honed in a little bit on some things. I mean, he was 18. I mean,
sure.
What do you do? I mean, you're still trying to figure things out. And so I says, let's just do what I do. Let's lock ourselves in an Airbnb for a couple days. And let's just have some smart people there and let's just strategize and go with the plan. And so we had this guy that's super smart. He thinks in binary. He flew out from Sweden and met us in Las Vegas. And there's another creator, Chad Wildclay. I don't know if you know who he is.
No.
But he was there. And we just kind of did a little mastermind. And for me, it was like, if I could point him in with the right type of strategy, then it could have a ripple effect. And so we went through, was looking at his data, and I says, well, what if your main goal is to get subscribers? Let me show you a pattern that I see. And he's like, well, what's this pattern? I says, the moment that you give your money away to your boys, you get a lot of subscribers. And he said, okay, that's great. I go, but you get 5 times more when you give it to random people on the street. And I says, when it's random, it's more heartfelt. And really, how do you feel about money? He goes, honestly, I don't understand it. It brings people joy. It doesn't bring me any joy. Yeah. And he goes, but I actually get joy giving others content. I says, that's it.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do. And so we created several videos of what he could create. And he was always into the more spectacles type stuff. And then it was kind of blending into just kind of more of philanthropy type, game show type content. But we worked really close from there. In fact, I invited him to VidSummit. And, he at that time he had 4 million subscribers just a couple months later. And no one knew who he was. I mean, he had a few people that came in, but nobody knew who he was. He's just sitting back there, with that content and just kind of going over the content of the conference. And then he's like, I want to buy into this conference. I'm like, nah, man, this is my baby, man. I'm not going to do that. And we just had this bond, and I kind of started mentoring him, and I was on his payroll, as a consultant. From that day, and 4 million became 20, became 100, became 200. 280, 286, and then he's on a road to 1 billion. A billion subscribers. That's what he wants to do. And what's been great is even when The Chosen was going, and I was still consulting, kind of. He's like, dude, you need to come live in North Carolina. I'm like, not moving to North Carolina. He's like, I'll buy you a house. I'm like, I'm not coming, whatever. But he literally bought a house next to his house. Yeah. And he's like, I bought it for you. Like, come here. So I have a house in North Carolina. But we did, during COVID, our family, hey, we're just together. It's awkward. So let's go out there and we'll help a little bit more. And it makes less traveling for me. And so it worked out pretty good during COVID.
So to focus the conversation more around entrepreneurs, businesses, people that are listening to this and going Derral, this is all really cool for you. but how do I think about video for my business? And there's so much, like it's the opposite of when you started, obviously. There's so much noise. There's so much conflicting advice. There's so many people trying to give advice.
There's so much bad video.
Also a lot of bad video.
Yeah, so that's the noise.
So what can you do? What do we do as business owners, Derral?
It's actually simple. It doesn't matter what you do. I've helped thousands of creators in my mentoring program that I have, just to help them discover the audience side of it, and then knowing how to bring value. And there's a plumber that's just down the road here. Okay, just plumber. And you'd think, okay, what's he going to do? Well, it's like creating content that would bring value to someone, and you can replicate that value. And if you can replicate that value and have that sense of connection, you can actually start to transform where you're not a plumber, but you're actually a content creator. And that's what I want them to do. Like, you're a plumber second, content creator first. And this guy here, his name's Roger Wakefield. And and he is the biggest plumbing channel in the world. And he does these, real plumber reacts to, or shows all these techniques. But his audience is people that want to understand plumbing, but they might not be plumbers. But the plumbers like to watch him too, to see what he's saying and what he's reviewing and so on from there.
Sure.
And so for me, you can do it. It doesn't matter the niche. What you need to do is understand the most valuable thing in life is people's time. And are you going to bring a net positive value to that time that they're seeing in their videos? There's something that's going to elevate them. Is it going to be inspirational, education? You're going to entertain them, or all three? And can you do it in a way where they have to share? Because like, if you've ever seen content that just speaks to you, the first thing that you do as a human is you think of 3 or 4 other people that you have to share it with. You do it. And the most powerful share, and this is where I think TikTok does it really well, is through text. It's just really easy to take a TikTok video and text it to someone.
Right.
So you got to check this out or whatever. It's going to make you laugh. Well, that pulls them in, and then the algorithm goes, oh, there's a certain type of person that actually likes this, but another person that actually shares with it. Let's find more people like that, and that's where things can go viral. And I'm here to tell you, doesn't matter the niche. There's I've done this so much. You just got to understand people and to bring value, but the value needs to be deeper than I'm just giving them the information.
Sure. So, like, here's 3 tips on whatever.
Yeah.
What's the difference between gaining views and building community?
So views are easy. Community is hard. So I'm going to bring this back to The Chosen. For us to do this, we didn't have some big Hollywood, company paying us a lot of money.
Yeah.
We actually had to do it through the audience, and the audience was supporting the channel, but also supporting getting content to be made. Just to give you context, $55 million is what season 5 is costing us to create. Where does that $55 million come from? It's like people, right? It's actually people that see the vision and want to be a part of it. So it's either through merchandising or just different crowdfunding methods that we have.
Yeah, that's
so it's not simple to do what we're trying to do, because we're trying to take it into quality content that deserves an audience for 1 billion people. So doesn't matter where it is. So views are super easy, but audiences are hard, because where audience is you have to be consistently connecting to them. Where they come in and you come in and watch a video and you feel like you're in the right place. You're already thinking of people that you want to share that experience with.
Yeah.
So there's a couple golfers here in Dallas, have the biggest golfing channel on YouTube. It's called Good. And it's just guys that just love doing trick shots and golfing with each other, right?
Yeah.
When people come there, they love golf, but they love the personalities. Golf's more about the shenanigans and the fun than it is about the play, right?
For most people, anyway.
Yeah. No, and that's where it's at. And so when people are watching that, they feel a part of that community, and they're like, oh man, where's this been my whole life? And what do? They binge watch it. They share it. They're like, oh my gosh, you got to see this whole thing. It's super great. And that's where audiences develop. So building an audience is difficult because you have to be consistent. You have to be consistently bringing value and speaking to that person at a deeper level than just oh, that was fun, I laughed or whatever. But if you get someone where it was like, oh my gosh, I got to share this, and they consistently hit that where you're sharing it over and over and over again, then you're building a brand. You're building something bigger than just a piece of content.
Let's wrap up on this note. Since I'm a podcaster, this is my selfish question.
Yeah.
Podcasts on.
I knew you were going there.
Podcasts on YouTube specifically, because I know that this is a new feature. They just kind of rolled this out.
No,
in the last couple years.
it's not a new feature. It's just the way that they're trying to convince you that's a new feature.
Okay. Well, explain that then.
Well, so the number one podcasting platform in the world, most people would think is Spotify, but it's not. It's YouTube. It's like 8x higher, right?
Yeah.
And so the difference would be you made one comment earlier on this podcast that you're afraid to put your Zoom only content up there. Well, then stop using Zoom.
Yeah.
Like there's a thing called Riverside FM.
Yeah.
Great piece of content. What it does is it records it at highest resolution on their own native thing, whether it's a phone or a computer or whatever. And then it separates the video and audio files that you can go and tweak and sweeten or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it uploads it to a place you can do it. And there's another place called StreamYard that does the same thing. But there's all these different applications out there.
Yeah.
And then two, you might say, well, what about the live component of it? Or I can only do it at a certain time. Well, just do it pre-recorded and then just release it as it. So believe it or not, one of the biggest channels in the world before they went over to Spotify was Joe Rogan. So that, JRE Experience. And also he was number 5 most watched and most consumed by watch time. So how many people listen to it? Except 3 hours, of course.
Yep.
But the 7th was GRE Clips. And so the Clips channel. So whatever you do, don't do shorts, don't do clips on the main channel.
Okay.
The main channel should be, our value proposition is like an hour, 10 minutes of a conversation where I'm getting to know people deeper. We're having conversations in that level. And then you take snippets, like even of this podcast, and take those snippets and make those 2 or 3, 4 minutes segments. And then they're like, I really like that. I really love how Travis actually, goes deep or whatever. And then they go looking for the podcast. And so by doing that, it creates this cluster where your clips are being recommended to people that watch the podcast. They're like, this is great. Instead of sending the whole podcast, they send the clip. Yeah. And it grows the audience on the other side as well.
Awesome, man. Darryl, this has been a lot of fun for me. Any last minute things on community building that you can share? And from a lot of people who listen to the show are entrepreneurs, a very entrepreneurial audience, and people who want to be creating something.
Yeah.
But I think again, kind of like we talked about, there's so much bad stuff out there that they're just getting bad advice on what to go create and how to actually create people who care about the stuff that they put out. So on the community piece, like any last kind of pieces of advice?
Yeah, it's really not that complicated. And this is what I love, where you made it a statement that says, hey, there's something that can go viral, but it's like only in a certain segment of the audience. Well, there's so many different segments of audiences out there, and there's a niche for anything. You would be amazed at what you can find online and what people care about, and there's always a community behind it.
Yeah.
And so it's just more anticipating, can we bring value to a community that already exists? And how are you going to bring value? Because you should be a part of that community to understand deeper, but then also look at an opportunity to really further, what people love. So I'll give you this last example. There's a channel called Matt's Off-Road Recovery. Okay. And just disclaimer, I'm a partner in the company. So like a lot of the strategies we do, but it's a guy in my town, in small town, Utah. He's a tow truck driver. Okay. And so he did AAA and all this other stuff, get people roadside assistance, whatever. Built a business. He actually bought into the business and then just was running it. But every once in a while, he'd get these random, hey, I'm stuck in the desert, I need help. And so he'd do these off-road recoveries. Well, he started documenting those on YouTube of these things. And he's like, I'm going to give people tips of how to get out of it, because like it seems like everybody doesn't know how to drive in the desert, or they break down or whatever. And so he'd be getting views. And so he tapped my shoulder and says, hey, what can I do? And I says, well, first off, and he wanted to partner up. I don't partner up that easy, and so I put him through my mentoring program. It's called Channel Jumpstart, and he went through it 12 weeks. And I told my president of my company, I'm like, hey, give him extra attention because I think we're going to partner up with him. Okay. And so he went through, and it was the moment that I gave him clarity, which is you think that people want to see the tips of you doing these recoveries, and that's not what they want. You know, what they want is they see a group of friends that get a call and they see somebody's in need and they're going to go help somebody in need.
Yeah.
And they're going to drive and they need to stop at the local gas station and pick up some nachos because they're hungry and they need to gas up.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they're going to go help someone and you don't know how it's going to go. And you're going to see them helping and they're going to be, you know, either freaked out or you never know what the situation they're coming in. And that's the content. So you're actually helping people. And that's what the content is. You're not giving them tips. So get away from the tips.
Yeah.
I mean, explain what you're doing, of course.
Sure.
But it's more about saving someone. And as soon as it clicked for him, I mean, we have 1.8 million, subscribers on YouTube, but we also have that many on Facebook. It's just like,
wow.
Like people really love seeing it. And we have our own conference. It's called the Off-Road Games. It's not a conference. Everybody brings it in. There's competition.
Nice.
You know, but it's like there's a way for the community to get together. So
Sure.
For me, it's like when people are consistent in bringing value, and it's bringing value to the audience. So their audience is the people that love off-roading. People love to see beautiful scenery, and they like jeeping and all that other stuff. That audience exists. Then you have to create opportunities for them to connect. And so, believe it or not, we had over 12,000 people come in to Southern Utah and just be a part of our games. We live stream it for 3 days.
That's awesome.
Have the inner app, and people can connect deeper, through our own app and do it. But it's just like we had millions and millions and millions of eyeballs on that games of just a tow truck driver, and it's all because of the audience we built. And we have the most amazing audience there.
Yeah, right.
They're buying our products and supporting us in so many different ways, but they feel pride.
Yeah, yeah.
In what we've developed.
In being a member of the community.
Yeah, because it's also stuff that they love too.
Sure.
Now they might not agree with everything, and they might not like the shenanigans. They want it to be more pure, but it is what it is.
Right, and it works.
But what's great is, and I told them, I go, hey, I will prove to you that if you build this audience right, that it's going to outperform what you did as a tow truck driver doing roadside recovery. Well, just the people that come into Hurricane, Utah and go to his off-road store, okay, which is, hey, this is our store. We just have a little makeshift merchandise. He, just by selling merchandise in his store in a week, did more than he did in a year.
Oh my gosh.
As a tow truck driver.
That's awesome. Derral, this has been a lot of fun, man. Last question for you. What's the most overrated video platform right now? And what's the most underrated video platform right now?
Oh man, I love TikTok. I have to delete it from my phone about every other month because I get too addicted to it. Right. So I do like TikTok. I would say it's overrated in the sense of people creating content for it. It's really good, but they're not making money at it. And if they don't make money at it, it's not sustainable.
Right.
And I would say underrated is X. I think don't sleep on X. You mentioned too that Elon's want to bring back Vine. Well, that's where it's going to put it.
You can put it inside of that app.
Yeah, 100%. Like it's going to be the whole vision.
I know that was part of the acquisition, right? Because Twitter owned Vine.
Yeah, I mean, he'll probably do it his own way. But the Vine is this. It's memes. Elon is this. He's memes. It's a marriage that needs to happen.
That's fair. Yeah.
And it's a generational thing too. It's just like, hey, what is that video meme?
Yeah.
And they'll try to figure it out, but I would say it's one to watch out for. There's a lot of people that are trying to switch over. The only thing would be the advertiser mix and stuff. Right. So that every platform has that issue, but like right now, I think it's going to be something to watch. I think what's going to take it over the edge is the moments that you can do transactions through X. So it's like a payment place. And as soon as that happens, that's game over because then it's an easy way to contribute or to buy. And he won't do it where he's over heavily burdening the creators. So like it might be a 70-30 split, but 70 for creators, 30 for the person. But it might even go like 90-10. You know, it could be an aggressive thing. So
awesome, man. Derral, thanks so much for coming on. Had a blast. For tuning in, watching. Where should everybody go to get more Derral? I
mean, you can find me on socials. Just spell my name, Derral. EVES, or you go to DerralEves.com. But like for everyone, definitely check out The Chosen. This was all crowdfunded. You can find it on Netflix, Amazon, Apple TV. We have our own app. You can just go to The Chosen. In fact, we actually beat out TikTok as the most downloaded app for a couple days.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Congrats on that.
Yeah.
Congrats on everything, man. I always love seeing good people win, so I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on the show. If you're tuning in, go tell Derral you heard about him here over on Travis Makes Friends, and show him some love. Yep. Buy his book. It's a good book if you're looking to get into YouTube and start creating more videos and all that. And as always, remember to leave every relationship better than you found it. Catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.